What's up, everybody? This is John here. Welcome to the Capsule Diaries for August 28th, 2020. Today I'm going to be talking about Thinking Caps, and Thinking Caps is the name that I use for my daily-ish nootropic stack. And for those of you that don't know what nootropic is, it's basically any compound that improves cognition without any meaningful side effects. And so this term is used somewhat generically these days, and it includes all sorts of stuff. But right now, I'm referring to compounds that are basically the true blue nootropics. This is not stimulating. It's more just like about keeping yourself sharp and processing quickly and fluidly. This video is mostly going to deal with the newest formulation I've been trying. I think I should give you a sense of the stack's development thus far. So I've been trying iterations of this stack for years and making adjustments as I go. And the version just before this one was great. The stack was made up of B vitamins, cholinergic modulators, choline donors, and artichoke leaf. And so the idea for the artichoke leaf came from the stack CILTeP, which is designed by Abelard Lindsay, and it's meant for promoting long-term potentiation, or LTP for short. So LTP is basically a metabolic process in the brain that's involved in reinforcing neural pathways, and it's a great stack for enhanced learning and memory formation. So if you're interested, I interviewed Abelard on the podcast in episode 6, which I've linked below. And Abelard and I have had similar experiences using CILTeP. And basically what we have experienced is something he's described as like a state of wonderment. And so this is pretty cool because it's like kind of like an intellectual hunger stack or like an intellectual curiosity promoting agent. So Abelard found himself basically binging on Khan Academy videos, and then I found myself just deep diving into stuff like Giuliano Tononi's integrated information theory and all this other heady shit. So this newer formulation though came about partially just because I ran out of artichoke leaf extract, but it also seemed like a good time to try something new. So this newest version, I really lean into the cholinergic end of things. So cholinergic basically refers to any sort of compound that affects the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which is the neurotransmitter that's involved in things like reflexes, processing, and memory. And unlike dopamine, acetylcholine doesn't really have the same sort of public persona, so the qualitative experience is difficult to convey. It seems basically that cholinergic modulating compounds seem to do very little for some kinds of minds, but they work amazingly for others. So it might have to do sort of with one's neurological profile. And if you're interested in this, you can check out the Braverman test online, and it will sort of give you a sense of your neurotransmitter preferences, or like the leanings of your cognitive chemistry, if you will. So let's talk about the new formulation. Basically, it's Aniracetam, 435 grams. This is per capsule, by the way. Centrophenoxine, 87 milligrams. Cognizin brand CDP Citicoline, that's 58 milligrams. Noopept is 12 milligrams. And Huperzine A is 58 micrograms. So let's go through these ingredients real quick. Aniracetam is basically, it's in the racetam family. It's sort of like the second generation of racetams, I guess. It's also known as an ampakine. It's the first ampakine, I guess. So it's, in addition to being like a cholinergic modulator, it's also an anxiolytic, and it sort of helps people with verbal fluency, which is interesting. I'd say that it's probably one of the most popular racetams. For me, it's maybe the most subtle, and so I'm still sort of debating whether or not it should be in my arsenal, because honestly, it doesn't have that overt of an effect. I don't know if it's worth the cost. Centrophenoxine, though, is it's very similar to the molecule DMAE, which is kind of like a choline molecule, but it's a little bit different. So this sort of acts as a choline donor, but centrophenoxine is mostly used in elderly people to reduce cognitive decline. It's probably a little bit unnecessary in this stack, but it's a cool compound to have in there. CDP Citicoline is another choline donor that's kind of like, something like alpha GPC. It's of that level, but it's a little bit different. It also sort of has a sensitizing effect on dopamine, which is pretty cool. even though this is generally a cholinergic leaning stack. Let's see here, what else? Noopept is, is generally touted as being like 1,000 times stronger than Piracetam, and I think that this is a little bit misleading because, if you say something like that, like this coffee is 1,000 times stronger than that coffee, it's like, well, you're going to have to drink 1,000 times less of it. And I think that that number is probably wrong. I think it's more on the order of 100. But, I mean, it's kind of ambiguous, and it's a bad way to talk about the potency of something. So basically, there's just 12 milligrams. This one has a sort of odd dose response curve where you don't necessarily get anything good at higher doses. So a lot of people have noted that there's this sweet spot, probably around 25 to 30 milligrams, and then beyond that, they've experienced brain fog. So this is one that you have to be careful with, which is why the dose is so low. Honestly, though, a lot of people have sort of like minimal effects from it. Like it's kind of a hate it or love it thing. This goes back to the Braverman thing. If you want to get a sense for your cognitive chemistry, that might help, see whether or not these cholinergics will do much for you. Lastly is Huperzine A, and this is an interesting one. It's from I guess it's a moss called Huperzine serrata, kind of like Chinese club moss basically, and it inhibits an enzyme called acetylcholine esterase. And so it's basically like it opens up the faucet so that acetylcholine can flow freely, and it sort of has different dynamics when it comes to recycling the neurotransmitters. So the thing is, this has a very long half-life, and so the conventional wisdom says that you want to basically not take this every day. That's why I do 5 days on, 2 days off. However, the dose is so low, you can totally get away with taking 200 micrograms of this on a daily-ish basis. And I have about, I have 58 micrograms in here. So I basically will take 2 capsules at a time, as much as 2 times a day. But I don't even really take that many often. So it's meant so that you can take this sort of in small doses a few times a day, because the Aniracetam also has a sort of weird dose response curve where you want to take low doses frequently instead of high doses occasionally. And I think that's the way that works the best for most people. So these doses are all very low because it's per capsule. That's why I take 2. Let's talk about how this stack is working, though. Compared to the original version of this that used the artichoke and sort of worked more on long-term potentiation, this is honestly less effective. And it's kind of funny because artichoke is just so much cheaper than Aniracetam. But I would say that basically it's more that I'm quick on my feet, sort of like mentally. I'm a little bit wittier. I don't know if it's just that I think that I'm funnier or wittier, but like I seem to have more rapid responses to things. And I mean, like my sort of humor usually is more like a quantity over quality type thing. And so it's just sort of altered that by like having, rapid quantity, which might improve my batting average mildly, but I don't know if if that's just my perspective. But it made me think of this guy, Rick Rosner, who is a total dweeb, but I think he's really interesting. And he is noted for having like one of the highest IQs in the world, and for being a baby on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because they had some sort of question that stumped him and he was upset by it. But he's a funny dude to follow on Twitter because he just goes off on political tirades. But he used to basically be a joke writer for Jimmy Kimmel, and he was specifically taking Piracetam and Aniracetam for being in the writing room. And this sort of resonates with my experience with it. He basically said that he stopped taking it when he, left the show. And so it seems like the type of thing that you don't need and you aren't going to notice unless you need to be thinking quickly and sort of like rapid fire, brainstorming stuff. So, that's what I think so far. I've already gotten some new ingredients for the next batch of this that I'll talk about in the next video probably, or in a future video. But so far, I mean, I like my last formulation of it a little bit better, and I'll probably revert back to that a little bit, or like some variation of that I'll update you on later. But yeah, the next video I think will be on one of my favorite stacks that I think is pretty close to perfection, which is called the Coffee Companion. So check back later and check out that video. Thanks.